Gravity waves are stretching and compressing the room you're sitting in right now. Not as a metaphor, literally. The distance between your hands and the wall behind you oscillates by a fraction of a proton's width every few minutes because something massive somewhere in the universe disturbs space-time. We built a machine sensitive enough to detect that. The machine is 4 kilometers long, uses lasers, and can measure a distance change of 10 to the minus 18 meters. And you didn't feel it. That's where I want to start. Not with the philosophy of perception, not with some mystical meditation on human limits, with the concrete physical fact that reality is broadcasting enormous amounts of information at you right now, and almost none of it registers. The question worth asking isn't that profound. The question is why? What is the actual physical mechanism that hides 99% of what's happening from you? The answer is both more specific and more disturbing than most people think. Start with light, because it's the most obvious place where we've already caught nature hiding things. What you call visible light, the colors from red through violet, everything your eye responds to, occupies a frequency range of roughly 400 to 700 terahertz. That sounds like a lot, until you lay it against the full electromagnetic spectrum. Radio waves start at about 3 Hz. Gamma rays top out around 300 exahertz. That's 300 followed by 18 zeros. The full span of electromagnetic radiation covers about 25 orders of magnitude. Your eyes respond to less than one of those orders of magnitude. Think about what that means concretely. Right now, passing through the room you're sitting in, AM radio waves from stations broadcasting news, FM signals, cell phone transmissions in multiple bands, Wi-Fi at 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, Bluetooth, microwave background radiation from the Big Bang itself, 13.8 billion years old, still traveling, still hitting you. Satellite signals, television broadcasts, the 60 Hz electromagnetic field humming off every piece of electrical wiring in your walls, X-rays from cosmic ray collisions happening continuously in the upper atmosphere. Neutrinos, roughly 65 billion solar neutrinos pass through every square centimeter of your body every second, most of them going straight through the Earth like it isn't there. You detect none of it. Not you detect it, but ignore it. Your sensory apparatus has no mechanism to respond to it. It is, for practical purposes, invisible. But here's what bothers me about the usual way people tell this story. They stop there. Wow, so much hidden reality. And then they get philosophical. I don't want to get philosophical. I want to understand why the window is so narrow. Because the answer tells you something interesting about how life actually works, and also something genuinely unsettling about what brains are doing. Your eye evolved to detect electromagnetic radiation in the 400 to 700 terahertz range for a specific, mundane reason. That's the range the sun puts out most intensely. The sun's peak output is around 500 terahertz, right in the middle of what we call green light. This isn't a coincidence. It's the most available signal. Evolution built sensors for the most available signal. The same logic applies to your other senses. Your ear detects pressure waves in air from roughly 20 to 20,000 hertz, which covers the range of sounds most relevant to a primate-sized animal dealing with predators and other primates. Below 20 hertz, infrasound and elephants are having conversations you can't hear. Above 20,000 hertz, and dogs are navigating a world of ultrasonic signals completely outside your range. Your skin detects mechanical pressure and temperature in ranges that matter for navigating physical objects on Earth. Your nose detects specific molecular shapes relevant to food quality, danger, and mates. In every case, the sensor is tuned to the signal most useful for survival in a specific ecological niche. This sounds obvious once you say it, but the implication is genuinely strange. Your sensory system isn't a general-purpose reality detector. It's a highly specialized filter, tuned to a thin slice of available information, optimized for a very particular game, staying alive and reproducing as a medium-sized omnivore on the surface of one specific planet. The universe is not the intended audience of your perception. Your genes are. Now here's what I think the story gets actually interesting, because most people think the problem is just the sensors. Fix the sensors, see more reality, build better instruments. And yes, we've done that. Radio telescopes, X-ray observatories, gravitational wave detectors, electron microscopes, and we've discovered that reality is enormously richer than what our senses deliver. The cosmic microwave background, the structure of DNA, the existence of magnetic fields around stars, all invisible to unaugmented human perception, all real, all discovered by building instruments that extend the range, but fixing the sensors only solves part of the problem because the bigger filter isn't your eyes, it's your brain. Here are some numbers that should stop you cold. Your retina sends about 10 million bits of information per second to your brain along the optic nerve. That's actually a lot. Your eye is capturing an enormous amount of visual data, but your visual cortex, the part of your brain processing what you consciously see, handles somewhere between 40 and 50 bits per second. 40 bits per second. Out of 10 million, your brain throws away 99.9996% of the visual information your eye captures before it ever reaches consciousness. The filtering isn't happening in the world, it's happening in the gap between your retina and your awareness. And it gets stranger because what the brain keeps isn't a random sample. It keeps what it predicted it would see. This is the part most people haven't heard, and it's worth slowing down for. The old model of perception, the one that feels intuitive, is that your eyes collect data, send it to the brain, and the brain builds a picture of reality from that data. Input, processing, output, like a camera. That model is wrong. What actually happens is closer to the opposite. Your brain is constantly generating a prediction, a model of what the world probably looks like right now, based on everything you've seen before, all your prior experience, all the patterns you've learned. The visual signal coming from your eye doesn't build the picture from scratch. It corrects the prediction. Your brain compares what it expected to see with what the eye is actually reporting and updates the model based on the difference, the prediction error. The actual sensory signal you're using to see is mostly error correction data, not raw reality. The implication of this is deeply uncomfortable. What you're experiencing as visual reality is largely a hallucination, a very good one, continuously calibrated against incoming data, but fundamentally a model that your brain is generating, not a transparent window onto what's actually there. The philosopher Thomas Metzinger called this the transparent medium problem. The model is so good, so seamlessly updated, that it never looks like a model. It looks like reality. The transparency is itself a feature of the system. You can see this breaking down in optical illusions. When your brain's prediction is wrong and the error signal isn't strong enough to update the model, you keep seeing the wrong thing even when you know it's wrong. The checker-shadow illusion, where two squares that are physically the same shade of gray appear completely different because your brain is applying a lighting model, doesn't go away when I tell you they're the same. Your visual system has already committed to the prediction. You can measure the gray values, know they're identical, and still see them as different. The model overrides the data. This has a name now. In neuroscience, predictive processing, or predictive coding. Carl Friston at University College London has been developing the mathematics of it for 20 years. The basic idea is that the brain is a prediction machine, and what we call perception is the continuous process of comparing predictions to sensory input and minimizing prediction error. Attention, in this framework, is the process of deciding which prediction errors to take seriously and which to suppress. And here's what that means for the question of hidden reality. Your brain doesn't just have a narrow bandwidth for incoming sensory data. It actively suppresses information that matches its predictions. Familiar things become literally invisible, not just unnoticed, but specifically inhibited at the neural level because they contain no new information. The prediction was right, so there's no error to process. You've experienced this. Drive a familiar route, arrive at your destination, realize you have no memory of most of the drive. Your brain predicted the whole thing so accurately that it suppressed the sensory data as redundant. Or walk into your own home and fail to notice that someone moved a chair 3 inches. The prediction overrides the new data. Or read a sentence with a word repeated, and not catch it because the language model filled in the expected pattern. The brain's strategy is, don't process what you already know, only process the unexpected. This is wildly efficient from an energy standpoint. Your brain uses about 20 watts, the same as a dim light bulb, to run a system of roughly 86 billion neurons, making trillions of connections. Efficiency is everything. But the cost is that familiar reality becomes invisible by design. So let's be precise about what we're actually dealing with, because I don't want this to slide into mysticism. The situation is, you have sensors tuned to a narrow slice of available physical signals determined by evolutionary pressures specific to one ecological niche on one planet. Those sensors deliver a fire hose of data to your brain. Your brain discards over 99% of that data before it reaches consciousness. The data it keeps is used primarily to correct a running predictive model, not to build a picture from scratch. Familiar information is specifically suppressed. The result is a model of reality that is highly functional for navigating your immediate environment and nearly useless for detecting anything outside your evolutionary context. That's not philosophy, that's the actual mechanism. Now, what does 99% of reality actually mean here? I want to be careful because 99% is doing some work I should be honest about. If we're talking about the electromagnetic spectrum by frequency range, the visible window is much less than 1%. It's closer to 1 part in 10 trillion. If we're talking about information bandwidth, the ratio of what hits your retina to what reaches consciousness, it's about 99.9996% lost. If we're talking about physical phenomena that exist and affect the world but that humans have no sensory apparatus for at all, gravitational waves, neutrinos, the magnetic field of the Earth, most chemical signals, ultrasound, infrasound, the list is long and we're only beginning to catalog it with instruments. The number 99% is conservative. The actual fraction of physical reality that your unaugmented sensory and cognitive system gives you direct access to is extraordinarily small. Here's what I find genuinely interesting about this, rather than just disturbing. We figured it out. That's the thing that should impress you. We are creatures with narrow band senses and prediction-suppressed brains, evolved to navigate a small slice of physical reality on the surface of one planet, and somehow we built instruments and developed methods that let us see gravitational waves, detect neutrinos, map the cosmic microwave background, image individual atoms, probe the structure of space-time. We are, in a deep sense, operating way outside our design specifications. Nothing in our evolutionary history required us to understand quantum mechanics. There's no selection pressure for correctly intuiting what happens at 10 to the minus 15 meters. And yet we got there. The method that got us there is science, specifically the discipline of not trusting your perception as the final arbiter of reality. Every major advance in physics in the last 150 years has involved discovering that intuition fails at some scale or speed or temperature, and building instruments and mathematics to replace the intuition. Thermodynamics required not trusting your feeling of heat as a fundamental quantity. Special relativity required not trusting your intuition about simultaneous events. Quantum mechanics required not trusting your intuition about the trajectory of particles. In each case, the path to understanding ran directly through the recognition that perception, including intuition, which is just fast unconscious pattern matching, wasn't giving you reality. It was giving you a model of reality, calibrated for a regime you don't actually live in when you're doing physics. There's one more layer I want to add, because I think it's the strangest part of all this, and most people don't think about it. Your brain doesn't just filter reality, it adds things that aren't there. Colors are the cleanest example. The physical world contains electromagnetic radiation at various frequencies. It does not contain red or blue or green. Those are experiences that your visual system generates when certain photoreceptors are stimulated in certain ratios. The wavelength of light around 700 nanometers doesn't have redness in it, the way a ball has mass. The redness is something your brain produces. The same is true of sounds. Air pressure waves exist. The quality of a musical note, the experience of hearing a middle C on a violin, that is constructed by your auditory cortex. It's not a property of the air molecules. And this goes much further than sense qualities. Your sense of continuous time, the feeling that the present moment is flowing, is also a construction. Your visual system runs at about 10 to 12 frames per second, your auditory system faster, and your brain stitches these together into what feels like a seamless stream. It isn't seamless. There's a small lag, about 80 milliseconds, between an event happening and your consciousness registering it. You are always living slightly in the past, and the present moment is a narrative your brain constructs after the fact, backdating events to make them feel simultaneous. Pain, hunger, the sensation of effort, these aren't direct readouts of physical states. They're models, weighted by prediction, context, attention, expectation. Placebo analgesia works because the prediction, "I took painkillers," literally suppresses the neural signals that create the pain experience. The prediction changes the perception. What you are experiencing right now, reading this, is a model. A very good model. Continuously corrected, but a model. The question that remains genuinely open, and I want to be honest that it's open, is what the relationship is between the model and the thing being modeled. We know the brain constructs experience from physical signals. We don't know in any deep sense, why there is experience at all. Why does the prediction machine feel like anything from the inside? Why isn't it just an information processing system that behaves as if it experiences things but in the dark? Nobody knows. This is called the hard problem of consciousness, and it's called hard not as modesty but because we have no agreed framework even for how to approach it. We can map every neuron firing when you see red. We cannot explain why any of those firings produce the experience of redness rather than nothing. What I can tell you is this. The question, why can't I see most of reality, has a precise, physical, well-understood answer. Your senses are narrow band by design. Your brain discards most of what they deliver by design. The model you experience as reality is a low bandwidth, prediction-dominated, heavily edited version of the physical signals arriving at your surfaces. We know the mechanism, we can measure the information loss, we've built instruments that don't have the same limitations, and with those instruments, we've discovered that reality is far more various and strange than your nervous system is built to show you. The fact that you're aware of this doesn't fix it. Your eyes still only respond to 400 to 700 terahertz. Your brain still throws away 99.996% of the incoming visual data. The gravitational waves are still washing through you right now, oscillating your bones by unmeasurably small fractions, carrying information about black holes merging a billion light years away. You won't feel it, but we can measure it. And the fact that we can measure what we can't feel, that we've found methods more reliable than perception for understanding physical reality, that's not a small thing. That might be the most important thing we've ever done.